Emotion is the language of the soul, yet for some, it becomes a flood that cannot be contained. Highly emotional people live life with heightened sensitivity, feeling joy more deeply, pain more sharply, and connection more profoundly. Their world is vivid and alive, but also exhausting. To understand them is to understand the complex interplay between emotion, perception, and self-regulation, the psychological balance between heart and mind. Being too emotional is not a flaw, it's often a sign of depth, empathy, and openness. But when emotions dominate reason, they can distort reality and make inner peace difficult to sustain. For people who are often described as too emotional, the world is an overwhelming yet beautiful place. They don't simply observe life, they feel it in its entirety. Every interaction, sound, or gesture carries a weight that others might overlook. A single word of kindness can fill them with warmth for hours, while a passing frown can leave them unsettled for days. Their minds and hearts are wired to experience life in high definition, with all the color, noise, and intensity that come with it. This heightened awareness is not a choice, but a natural psychological trait, often linked to what researchers call high sensitivity. These individuals have nervous systems that process sensory and emotional information more deeply. What seems like an ordinary moment to others might feel profound, moving, or even painful to them. This sensitivity often originates from a combination of biology and early experience. Studies suggest that highly sensitive people have more active mirror neurons, the parts of the brain that allow us to empathize and feel what others feel. When someone around them is sad, they don't just notice it, they feel it in their own body. When they see beauty, they don't just admire it, they're moved by it to tears. This depth of perception allows them to connect deeply with art, music, nature, and human emotion. But it also makes them vulnerable to emotional overload. Their inner lives are vast oceans, calm on the surface at times, but filled with unseen currents below. Because they process everything so deeply, emotional recovery takes longer. Where others might shrug off an argument or criticism, a deeply emotional person replays it in their mind for hours, dissecting every word and tone. They try to understand why it hurt so much, what they could have done differently, and whether they were at fault. This intense internal reflection can lead to profound insight, but also to self-blame and anxiety. It's not that they want to feel this much, it's that their emotions have roots that reach far deeper than most people realize. Their sensitivity can make social life complicated. Crowded environments, harsh voices, or emotional conflict can quickly drain them. They may appear shy, withdrawn, or overly cautious, but it's not due to weakness. It's their mind's way of protecting itself from overstimulation. In truth, they often crave connection, genuine, deep connection, but surface-level interactions feel empty or even painful. Because of this, they are often misunderstood. Others might call them dramatic, too sensitive, or overreactive, not realizing that they are simply feeling what most people suppress. Yet, there is great strength in such emotional depth. Their heightened perception allows them to notice details, understand people's unspoken feelings, and offer compassion that feels healing. They often make extraordinary artists, writers, and thinkers because their emotions give them insight into aspects of human experience others cannot articulate. Their challenge, however, is to learn that feeling deeply is not a curse, but a gift that requires care and balance. When they learn to protect their energy and channel their emotions constructively, they discover a profound truth. Their sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness, empathy, and authenticity in its purest form. Another crucial aspect of people who are often described as too emotional is their struggle with emotional regulation and boundaries. Because they experience feelings so intensely, they frequently find it difficult to manage the flood of emotions that surge through them. A minor criticism may feel like a personal attack, a simple disagreement may trigger overwhelming frustration, or a small disappointment can provoke deep sadness. Their nervous system is highly reactive, meaning that emotions arise quickly, powerfully, and sometimes without warning. This intensity makes it hard to pause before reacting, and many highly emotional people experience frequent inner turmoil as they attempt to reconcile what they feel with how they want to respond. The challenge of emotional regulation stems from the fact that their emotions are often all-encompassing. Unlike someone who experiences feelings as brief and manageable, highly emotional people tend to live inside their emotional experiences. When anger arises, it may occupy their thoughts entirely, coloring perceptions of unrelated situations. When sadness strikes, it may feel as though the world itself has become heavy and gray. Because of this, the emotional reactions of others, a friend's frustration, a colleague's impatience, are often magnified in their perception, further complicating their ability to maintain inner balance. Without conscious strategies, these individuals may find themselves overwhelmed, reactive, or exhausted by the very intensity that makes them empathetic and perceptive. Boundaries are a related challenge. Highly emotional individuals often struggle to separate their feelings from the feelings of others. They may absorb the stress, anxiety, or anger of those around them, believing that they are responsible for managing these external emotions. This absorption leads to emotional exhaustion, as they constantly navigate both their own feelings and the emotional currents of the people they care about. Without clear boundaries, they risk losing touch with their own needs, desires, and mental stability. Psychological health requires recognizing which emotions belong to them and which do not, a skill that can take years to cultivate for someone with heightened sensitivity. Despite these challenges, emotional regulation is not about suppressing feelings. In fact, trying to stifle emotion often exacerbates the intensity, leading to greater frustration and even physical symptoms such as headaches or fatigue. Effective regulation involves awareness, reflection, and strategic response. Practices such as mindfulness, journaling, deep breathing, or therapy help highly emotional people observe their feelings without being swept away by them. By creating space between emotion and reaction, they gain the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Ultimately, emotional regulation and boundaries empower highly emotional individuals to channel their depth into strength rather than chaos. When they learn to manage the intensity of their feelings and protect their energy, they maintain their sensitivity while cultivating resilience. Their emotions, once overwhelming, become a source of insight, connection, and creativity, allowing them to navigate the world with compassion without being consumed by it. This delicate balance is the hallmark of someone who feels deeply yet thrives amidst the emotional currents of life. Another defining characteristic of people who are too emotional is their extraordinary capacity for empathy, which, while a gift, can also be a source of emotional overwhelm. Highly emotional individuals do not simply understand the feelings of others, they experience them almost as if the emotions were their own. When someone around them is sad, anxious, or stressed, they often feel these emotions in their body: a tightening in the chest, a knot in the stomach, or a heaviness that seems to settle over them. This ability to sense and internalize the emotional states of others makes them profoundly compassionate, capable of offering support and understanding that feels genuine and deeply human. However, this empathy comes at a cost. Highly emotional people can struggle to differentiate between their own emotions and those of others. They may internalize other people's problems, treating them as their own responsibilities. If a friend is angry, they feel the anger ripple through themselves. If a loved one is disappointed, they experience that disappointment acutely. Over time, this absorption of external emotions can lead to exhaustion, anxiety, or even burnout. It can create a cycle in which they are perpetually attuned to everyone else's feelings while neglecting their own, leading to emotional imbalance. Psychologically, this phenomenon can be explained by an overactive mirror neuron system and a highly sensitive nervous system. Mirror neurons allow humans to simulate and understand the emotions and intentions of others, but in highly emotional people, this system operates with heightened intensity. They don't just observe emotions, they mirror them internally. This makes them incredibly attuned and caring, but also vulnerable to emotional contagion, where the feelings of those around them directly affect their own mental state. Learning to recognize this process is crucial for maintaining emotional health. Another consequence of extreme empathy is that these individuals may find themselves in emotionally draining relationships. They are often drawn to people who are vulnerable, troubled, or needy because their natural inclination is to care and support. While this can create deep bonds, it can also mean they take on more than they can handle, further heightening emotional stress. Without boundaries, they may feel responsible for fixing other people's feelings or problems, a task that is both impossible and psychologically damaging. Developing strategies to manage this empathetic intensity is essential. Techniques such as emotional grounding, mindfulness, and conscious detachment allow them to experience empathy without being overwhelmed. For example, they can acknowledge another person's suffering while mentally reminding themselves that they are not responsible for carrying it. Journaling, meditation, and reflection help them process absorbed emotions and distinguish their own feelings from those they mirror in others. In essence, their empathy is both the source of their depth and the reason for their vulnerability. When properly managed, it allows them to form profound connections, understand human experiences at a deep level, and offer compassion that others find rare and invaluable. But without awareness and boundaries, their empathetic nature can lead to emotional turbulence, leaving them feeling drained and unstable. Mastery of empathy is therefore central to transforming heightened sensitivity into a source of resilience and inner strength. Another key aspect of people who are too emotional is their tendency to mistake emotional reactions for absolute truth. Highly emotional individuals often feel their emotions with such intensity that they interpret them as evidence of reality rather than as internal responses to situations. For example, if they feel rejected by someone, they may conclude that they are unworthy or unloved. If they feel anger toward a friend, they might believe the friend has intentionally wronged them, even if the situation is more nuanced. This blending of feeling and fact can create cycles of misunderstanding, anxiety, and conflict, because emotions, while valid, are not always accurate reflections of external reality. Psychologically, this tendency arises from the way highly emotional people process experiences. Their emotional brain, primarily the limbic system, reacts faster than the rational brain, often assigning meaning to feelings before reason has a chance to intervene. This quick emotional judgment can make them highly reactive. While their capacity to feel deeply is a strength, it can also magnify perceived slights, exaggerate fears, and distort interpersonal interactions. Without conscious reflection, they may respond to their emotions as though they are incontrovertible truths, leading to misunderstandings with others and inner turmoil. Because emotions feel immediate and tangible, highly emotional individuals often prioritize them over logic or evidence. They may overanalyze situations, replay interactions repeatedly, and ruminate on perceived mistakes. Their minds attempt to make sense of intense feelings, but this process can backfire, reinforcing the belief that their emotional state is a mirror of reality. The result is a heightened sensitivity to criticism, rejection, or perceived injustice, often leading to overreaction or withdrawal. Learning to differentiate between emotional response and objective reality is a critical skill for highly emotional people. Techniques such as mindfulness, cognitive reframing, and journaling help create a buffer between feeling and action. Mindfulness allows them to observe emotions as transient experiences rather than permanent facts. Cognitive reframing teaches them to interpret situations in ways that are more balanced, recognizing that an emotional reaction is just one perspective rather than the definitive truth. Journaling provides a safe outlet to process intense feelings and analyze situations more clearly. Furthermore, emotional people benefit from the practice of pausing before responding. By creating even a brief interval between stimulus and reaction, they give their rational mind a chance to assess the situation. Over time, this pause reduces impulsivity, prevents misunderstandings, and fosters emotional resilience. They learn that feelings are signals, not verdicts, that emotions inform experience but do not dictate absolute reality. Ultimately, highly emotional people have the capacity to feel life's richness more deeply than most, but without awareness, this intensity can cloud perception. When they learn to separate the intensity of their emotions from objective reality, they gain both clarity and stability. Their feelings remain vivid and authentic, but they are no longer enslaved by them. This balance transforms emotional intensity from a source of chaos into a wellspring of insight, empathy, and wisdom, allowing them to navigate life with both depth and composure. Another defining feature of people who are too emotional is their deep attachment to others and the fear of loss that often accompanies it. Highly emotional individuals tend to form intense bonds quickly and invest themselves fully in relationships, whether with family, friends, or romantic partners. This attachment is fueled by their heightened sensitivity and empathy, which makes connections feel profound and vital. They experience love, loyalty, and affection with remarkable intensity, and when those bonds are threatened, even subtly, the emotional impact can feel overwhelming. The fear of losing someone or something important often drives their emotional responses, amplifying feelings of anxiety, sadness, or desperation. Psychologically, this attachment is often linked to early life experiences and attachment styles. For instance, people who experienced inconsistent caregiving or emotional unpredictability as children may develop a heightened sensitivity to the presence or absence of love. They grow up learning that emotional security is fragile, which can make them hyper, alert to potential rejection or abandonment. As adults, this manifests as a profound need for reassurance, a tendency to worry about relationships, and an emotional investment in outcomes that others might consider minor. They may overanalyze interactions, ruminate on perceived slights, or read into every word and gesture for hidden meaning. This deep attachment also fuels a strong sense of loyalty and devotion. Highly emotional individuals often go above and beyond to support the people they care about. They are attuned to the needs, feelings, and desires of others, and may prioritize others' well-being over their own. While this capacity for care is admirable, it can also be a source of emotional vulnerability. When the object of their attachment is distant, indifferent, or unavailable, the emotional fallout can be intense. Their sense of self-worth may become intertwined with the state of the relationship, creating cycles of anxiety and self-doubt. The fear of loss is closely tied to their emotional intensity. They imagine worst-case scenarios, anticipating rejection or abandonment even in healthy relationships. This anticipation can provoke heightened emotional responses, such as anger, sadness, or clinginess, which may strain relationships further. Without conscious reflection and emotional management, attachment can become a source of emotional turbulence rather than fulfillment. Developing awareness of these patterns is essential. Techniques such as mindfulness, journaling, and reflective dialogue help highly emotional individuals recognize when their intensity is rooted in fear rather than reality. They learn to separate their need for connection from the actual stability of the relationship, understanding that emotions are signals to navigate relationships thoughtfully, not mandates to control outcomes. In essence, their deep attachment is both a strength and a vulnerability. It allows them to experience love, connection, and intimacy more richly than most, but it also exposes them to intense emotional fluctuations. By cultivating self-awareness, emotional boundaries, and resilience, they can honor their attachments without being overwhelmed by fear, turning emotional intensity into a source of compassion, depth, and relational wisdom. Another important aspect of people who are too emotional is that their sense of self-worth often fluctuates based on external emotional validation. Highly emotional individuals tend to derive a significant portion of their confidence and self-esteem from how others respond to them. Positive feedback, affection, or approval can lift them to euphoric highs, while criticism, rejection, or perceived indifference can plunge them into despair. Their emotions are not just experiences, they act as a measure of their value in the world. This dependence on external affirmation makes them especially vulnerable to mood swings and emotional instability. Psychologically, this pattern is often linked to early experiences of conditional love or inconsistent reinforcement. If a child learns that affection or approval is granted only when they behave in certain ways or meet specific expectations, they may grow into adults who constantly seek validation to feel worthy. For highly emotional people, the internalization of these early patterns means that their self-image is deeply intertwined with others' perceptions. A kind comment can feel like proof of their inherent goodness, whereas a mild criticism can feel catastrophic, triggering self-doubt and rumination. This dependence on emotional validation can affect relationships and decision-making. Highly emotional individuals may overcompensate to please others, avoid conflict at the expense of their own needs, or exaggerate emotional expressions to gain recognition. They are highly sensitive to social cues, often interpreting neutral interactions as positive or negative reflections on their worth. This heightened sensitivity, while it allows them to connect deeply with others, also creates vulnerability. When validation is withheld, they can spiral into insecurity, anxiety, or sadness. However, awareness and self-reflection can transform this vulnerability into a source of growth. By recognizing the distinction between internal self-worth and external feedback, highly emotional individuals can begin to cultivate intrinsic validation. Practices such as mindfulness, journaling, affirmations, and self-compassion help them ground their sense of value in their actions, values, and authentic self, rather than in the shifting opinions of others. Over time, they learn that emotions are signals, not verdicts. Feelings of approval or disapproval do not define their essence. Developing this internal foundation also enables them to maintain emotional stability in social situations. They can engage empathetically and authentically with others without being swept away by external reactions. They begin to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, even when faced with criticism or indifference. Their emotional depth remains intact, but it becomes a source of insight and connection rather than insecurity. Ultimately, highly emotional individuals who struggle with self-worth fluctuations must learn that the key to emotional resilience lies in separating identity from emotional feedback. When they anchor their sense of value internally, their emotions no longer dictate their self-esteem. Instead, their feelings become instruments for understanding themselves and others, enhancing empathy, creativity, and relational depth. By achieving this balance, they transform emotional intensity from a source of vulnerability into a wellspring of strength, authenticity, and wisdom. The final key aspect of people who are too emotional is that, with awareness and practice, they can transform their emotional intensity into profound wisdom and insight. While their emotions may initially feel overwhelming, they are not inherently negative. Rather, they are powerful signals that reflect both the inner world and the external environment. Highly emotional individuals have a unique ability to perceive subtle cues, empathize with others, and experience life's highs and lows more vividly than most people. This depth of experience, when channeled constructively, can become a source of creativity, emotional intelligence, and personal growth. Psychologically, emotional intensity provides a rich internal landscape for self-reflection. People who feel deeply are naturally attuned to patterns in their emotions and behaviors, which allows them to explore the root causes of their reactions. They often ask questions like, "Why did this hurt so much? Why do I react this way? What does this feeling reveal about my values, fears, or desires?" Over time, this introspection can lead to self-awareness, resilience, and a nuanced understanding of human nature. They learn not only about themselves, but also about the motivations, fears, and emotions of others, making them exceptional communicators, counselors, and leaders. Transforming emotional chaos into wisdom also involves developing strategies for emotional regulation, boundary setting, and self-care. Practices such as mindfulness, meditation, journaling, and therapy provide the tools to observe emotions without being consumed by them. By pausing before reacting and reflecting on the source of their feelings, highly emotional individuals gain clarity and control. They learn that emotions are information, not commands, and that feeling intensely does not necessitate impulsive action. Furthermore, highly emotional individuals can leverage their emotional depth to form stronger, more authentic connections. Their ability to empathize, sense unspoken feelings, and respond with genuine compassion makes them deeply valued by others. They are capable of creating relationships built on understanding and trust because their emotional perception allows them to respond thoughtfully and sensitively. Over time, this emotional mastery turns their heightened sensitivity from a perceived weakness into a remarkable strength. Ultimately, the journey of a highly emotional person is one of transformation. Initially, their intensity may feel like a burden, leading to misunderstandings, overreactions, and inner turmoil. However, as they cultivate awareness, self-regulation, and reflection, they begin to see their emotions not as obstacles but as guides. Their sensitivity becomes a lens through which they experience life fully, respond with empathy, and connect deeply with others. Emotional intensity, once overwhelming, evolves into a source of insight, creativity, and wisdom. In this way, the very trait that challenges them most also becomes their greatest gift, allowing them to navigate life with depth, compassion, and authenticity.